Welcome to the Writer's Journey podcast. I'm Michael Laran, a science fiction and fantasy author on a journey to go from nobody to bestseller, and I'm documenting every step of the way. Tune in every week as I pull back the curtain on my writing life and how I'm building a writing career while working a full-time job, raising a family, and attending law school classes in the evenings. You can find show notes for this week's episode, a free starter library of my fiction, and much more at michaellaran.com. Hello and welcome to episode 160. 160 is a great number, and in this week's episode we're going to be talking about the follow-up to last week's episode, which was my analysis of The Conquest of Happiness by Bertrand Russell. And I titled the name of this episode, The Ingredients to Happiness in the Writing Life. This is part 2 and the final part, and thank you to those of you who reached out and said that last week's episode resonated with you. I hope that this episode will resonate with you as well, and kind of my wrap up as what I thought would be the recent thoughts on what it means to be a happy writer, especially in today's really fast, ever-changing industry. So last week, I don't have to recap what I talked about last week. We'll just jump into it. If you haven't heard last week's episode, I would highly recommend that you listen to that first before you listen to this, because it will make a lot more sense. So last week, we just real quick, we did talk about Russell's thoughts on what makes someone unhappy. And we talked about the unhappiness piece. The second half of his book is about what makes someone happy. And these are the ingredients to happiness, so to speak. You don't necessarily have to have all of them. If you do have all of them, that's great. And it's going to look different for everybody. So, the things I talk about are going to look different for me than they are for you. It's incumbent upon you to figure out the recipe and the amount of each ingredient, so to speak, that works best for you. And again, I'm only sharing this because this was so profound and impactful for me. And everything he was saying really resonated with what I was thinking and some of the things that I had been doing over these last 7 years without really even thinking about it, that helped me realize that happiness is a choice and that happiness is a skill that you can build, and you can choose to be happy right now, and you can get better at being happy right now as well. Okay? So the ingredients to happiness. What is the first one? Well, the first one, according to Russell, is zest, or a passion for something. Now, this is kind of funny because I imagine that many of you listening have a passion for books, a passion for writing. And Russell says, quote, "The more things a man is interested in, the more opportunities of happiness he has, and the less he is at the mercy of fate, since if he loses one thing, he can fall back on the other." And this was very powerful for me because it got me thinking about how a lot of writers I know put all of their eggs into the writing basket. It's the one thing they focus on, and if it doesn't work out, they burn out and go out in a blaze of glory. All right. And there is such a, let me put it this way. I think that if writing is your only passion, you're setting yourself up for trouble, because this is not an easy profession. I've been doing this for since 2014, but honestly been doing it since 2012, and I'm almost at a decade now, and I'm not a full-time writer. I'm not making nearly as much money as some of the big names in self-publishing, and it can be a grind, and it is a lot of staring at a wall, talking to myself like I'm doing on this podcast right now, or it is a lot of staring at a screen and just typing endlessly and really hoping that people are going to hear what you have to say. And a lot of times they're not going to want to hear what you have to say. And that's just a hard thing for a lot of people to take, because people want success right away, right? So that's one problem. But on the other hand, I do think that there is such a thing as having too many passions. I certainly know other writers who love writing, but they might be doing a million other things too. And so it can be possible to split your focus, And so I think about my zest. Writing is not writing is not the only thing that defines me. Like, sure, I like to tell people that I'm a writer, but I also have a pretty successful insurance career, and the work I do, it's interesting. I enjoy it, and I'm moderately good at it. I'm kind of in a niche that there aren't very many people that kind of do what I do, and so I happen to enjoy that, and it's brings in money, and that's a good thing. And so I know that me personally, I've gone through seasons in my life where the writing was kind of first, and there was a lot of things that I was working on with that. And then there were seasons where the writing really took a back seat to work, where I had to, develop myself at work and kind of learn more things on that front, or taking a new job or those sorts of things. And so it's kind of this give and pull. And I always thought when I was working, especially when I was working entry level jobs, I always thought that it was taking time away from my writing, or vice versa. Even though I still put in the 40 hours a week, or sometimes 50 hours a week, and wrote on my own time and all that, I just always felt like I always felt like that, like I was splitting my time, and that I could get further if I just focused on one of them. And now that I look back on it, I've kind of built a writing career while also building a pretty successful career in insurance. And I think that helped me stay grounded more than I think it did. Because when I look back at my writing, there were times, with the writing where it maybe things weren't working very well, or, I was grinding, and I was just kind of getting nowhere. And the insurance is going really well, and then in the times where the insurance is kind of on autopilot, and, I'm just kind of doing my thing, the writing was going really well. So I feel like this zest and passion for me, at least in my own life, having an avocation that, I enjoy, and can tolerate, I think has really helped me. It's helped me stay grounded. And, if you've read my book, Mental Models for Writers, I've talked a lot about liquid knowledge, and how the things you learn on the job, you can transfer to writing, and vice versa. And I know that I have certainly taken advantage of that. So the first ingredient to happiness is zest and passion. And I know that you have zest and passion in writing, but I wonder, are there other things that you can have zest and passion in, that you can turn to when the writing isn't going as well as you want? It's just something that I look back on, and it's kind of something that I did accidentally. I never thought that I never thought that a career in insurance would be something that would be helpful to me in my writing, but it has been something that has been helpful to me in my creativity and my mental health. All right. So that's the first ingredient. The second ingredient is affection. And this is just very simple. It's receiving affection, and it's giving affection. So having people in your life who love you, and being able to love the people in your life. And that could be family. It could be friends, who I've always liked to say are chosen family. It could be fellow writers. But this is more than just superficial, people that and talk to every once in a while. It's really the people who are in your inner circle. And if the people who are in your inner circle are toxic, that is something that will affect your happiness. And I think that that's important. And so I know that a lot of you listening are family people, and I just want you to think about that, and how important that is. All right. And then the third ingredient is family, okay, which we really don't need to go into because it's very similar to the affection, but it is important in its own right. And then the next ingredient is work. So, if you didn't work, you probably would be bored, and you would need something to do, right? And so for us, writing is the work that we're passionate about. And so you think about marrying the zest and the passion with work that you're passionate about. And I like to think of this as a supernatural work ethic, but I also like to think of it as a work ethic that doesn't really, it's not really a work ethic, because you're having fun. while you're doing it. So it doesn't really feel like work. And for me, I've always enjoyed writing to the point where I don't feel like it's work. Although, there are times where I impose deadlines on myself and I do these crazy challenges. And, certainly I have YouTube and the writer's journey and writing tip of the day where I have to create content on a schedule. But even then, it's not work. I do it from a place of pleasure and a place of joy. And I think that that's an important ideal to have. And that's also true if you have an avocation. If you have a career, like with insurance for me, I mean, I've enjoyed learning and getting to know a lot of the things that I've been working on for subject matter. And so you combine all those things together and you have something that will keep you busy, something that will keep you honest, and then something that will energize you and not demotivate you. I think that's important. Okay, so work is another important part, and I've always liked to think, just me personally, this is just my take on it. Having fun is important, and if something's not fun anymore, then I don't do it. And so the reason I'm able to do so much is because I've been able to find so many things that are fun. And so I'm just having fun all the time. I'm always learning. I'm always growing. I'm always stretching. And the opportunities and the things that I choose to put on my plate reflect that. All right. Now, the next ingredient for happiness is one that really, really struck me as something that's vitally important to your overall happiness. And that is impersonal interests. So things that you're not, if you had to ascribe a level of passion or a level of zest to these things, it would be less than, say, writing, right? Or it would be less than the main things. These would be the minor things, so to speak. So what are the things that you're passionate about, but that aren't your primary source of income? They're just strictly entertainment. And the reason he says that these are important things is because they allow you to recharge your mind. They allow you to use your mind, but not in such a way that it's taxing. Okay. And so for me, these are non-writing things. So I've always been a music fan. I grew up writing music, listening to music. I hear things in music that other people don't hear. And so listening to jazz, discovering new artists, video game music, these are things that I like to do. I like to watch YouTube videos, and these are things that I enjoy, where if I'm having a bad day or I need to do something that's not writing related, that's usually what I do. I love reading. That's another impersonal interest. Although reading is a little too writing related, it would have to be reading something that has nothing to do with writing or, self-help, I suppose, or even science fiction and fantasy. So that books is one of those things where that it's on the borderline. But I mean, I read all the time. And then tea. I love tea. I love collecting teas and drinking new teas, and there's something about the ritual of drinking tea on a schedule that is just very relaxing and allows me to, I don't know, slow down. Tea has a great skill of bringing you in the moment when you drink it. So I like to collect loose leaf teas. I drink gong fu style, and it's fun for me, right? And it's something I can do to de-stress. I enjoy essential oils. People look at me like with a tilted head. Essential oils. Yeah, I love essential oils. I'm always looking for new ones and interesting ways to mix them together because I just love the mood. Like, I'm not one of those people that says that essential oils has any scientific benefit. I have no idea if they do or not. I don't really care about that. I like them because they smell good, and I like to mix those together depending on how I'm feeling and mood. And it's fun for me. So I have a lot of different levers that aren't writing related or work related that I can turn to recharge. And do you have that? And if you don't, can you find some impersonal interest? Or really, it's just a fancy way of saying a hobby, right? So I look back on the last 10 years for me, And I've always had these impersonal interests in things that I can turn to when I need to. All right. And then the last ingredient that Russell had was what he called effort and resignation. And this was a little more complicated. It was really just more of a mindset, uh, that happiness is a mindset, and that you have to understand and accept that the world is bigger than you, and that you're just here to do what you can with the time that you have. And there was a great quote, and it's a bit of a long quote, but I'm going to read it anyway. And that is that, quote, "Work that is worth doing can be done even by those who do not deceive themselves either as to the importance or as to the ease with which it can be done. Those who can do their work only when upheld by self-deception had better first take a course in learning to endure the truth before continuing their career, since sooner or later the need of being sustained by myths will cause their work to become harmful instead of beneficial. It is better to do nothing than to do harm." So he's saying a lot of things here. First and foremost, I think he's saying that self-awareness is key. Being self-aware, understanding what your purpose is, understanding why you're here, understanding why the work you do is important to you. And it doesn't have to be work related, right? It's just, why do you exist and what is your philosophy of life? Because if the work you're doing is built on self-deception, right? So you say that you want to help people, or you want to write books that are going to change the world, but really you're only saying that because it's coming from a place of, maybe that's not the real reason you want to write, right? Maybe you're writing because you're hurt and you want the world to see that. It's better to be honest with yourself, is all he's saying. Be honest with yourself about why you're actually doing it. Because if you're honest with yourself, then you can do better. And if you're not honest with yourself, you're only doing yourself harm. And, it's better to do nothing than to do harm. And I thought that was a great takeaway. So really this boils down to mindset, and it boils down to understanding yourself and understanding life in general. And that doesn't come to everybody easily. It certainly doesn't come to me easily. And I believe that the best way to unlock this is to go through counseling and to have a strong support network of people around you that you can talk to. And I really do believe that, because, guys, I've talked about counseling a lot on this channel and therapy. And, I don't recommend, there are very few writers I would not recommend this to be honest with you. So let's bring this back home again. Let's bring it full circle. So if you think about the ingredients that we just talked about, we talked about zest and passion, meaning the things that you're passionate about. We talked about affection and your ability to receive and give affection being critical to your happiness because it focuses you externally on others. Remember, we talked about that last week. Happiness means diminishing preoccupation with yourself and focusing on others. Family, we talked about that. We talked about work. We talked about impersonal interests. And then we talked about effort and resignation, which really I'd interpret as mindset and self-awareness. How are those ingredients? What do those look like in your life? What do you have passion around? How can you improve the relationships in your life? How is your relationship with your family? How is your work ethic? How are your impersonal interests or your hobbies? Do you have extra hobbies outside of writing? And do you use them in a strategic way? And are there things you can improve with your mindset so that you don't feel as if you are constantly comparing yourself to others? You don't feel as if you can't do something. You don't feel as if you're aimless. You don't feel as if you are inadequate. You instead understand why you are here and are comfortable with why you're here. And for me, this last one is something that has been very critical for me. I feel like I've healed in a way and addressed a lot of the issues that I've encountered in my childhood or with my personality, and I am in a really great spot. I can't and it's really not to brag. It's just I feel so much. I'm in a place of greater peace than I was just say a month ago. And a month ago I was in a pretty good spot, but I feel much better now about where I am. And I feel like this book really just helped me unlock some of these answers that I've been looking for in my own life. And so I hope that this book will do that for you. And so for writers, as I think about this, as I think about the ingredients for a writer, you know, I think about, with zest and passion, I think that you want to have a passion and purpose about why you write, tied with a clear strategy. And you also want to have something else that you're passionate about so that writing is not your only thing. And how many people out there are going to tell you that? Most if we go general for a second, most entrepreneurial people are going to tell you you need to be all in on whatever it is your business is going to be. Otherwise, you're not going to do it with intention or clear purpose or whatever, right? That's what most people are going to tell you. Most people in the publishing space are going to say, well, you need to be focused purely on writing because that is your profession. That's what you do, right? I just have an oddball opinion that writing shouldn't be the only thing you're focused on. You should have other things you're passionate about, other things that bring in money for you as well. And maybe that means that you have a full-time job for most of your life until your writing strikes it big. Or maybe it means that there's other things that you can do as well. Maybe nonprofit work or volunteer work that you put in just as much energy. But having that release valve and having a yin to your writing yang, I don't know. I think it's one of the reasons I'm still here, because I think if I just focused on the writing, there's been times in my writing career where I felt like, okay, if I don't, and this was early in my career, I don't feel like this, I've never felt like this in a long time, but if this book doesn't succeed, then my career is finished, and I wonder how many people listening can relate to this, where you spent all this money on this book and, you're feeling guilty about it because you've got a family, you've got children, you've got to eat. And here you are spending, $1,000 to publish a book and it doesn't even sell any copies. And here you are feeling guilty about that, And so then it's like, well, maybe I only have one more book in me before I have to grow up and become an adult, And that does more damage to you as a writer than anything else. So why not try to minimize that? That's all I'm saying. I've been doing this for about 10 years, and I can tell you that a lot of people that quit, they quit for that exact reason. And so to me, it's better to write part-time and enjoy it and have fun with it than to write full-time and then have it consume everything and you burn out. Because I've also have had the unfortunate pleasure of meeting writers who were in the self-publishing space, very big. And these are names that you probably would recognize and have heard on podcasts, making six figures and so on and so forth. And then, the next year they fizzled out. And they fizzled out because they quit their jobs. They focused on writing so much that they couldn't take it. So if you're gonna do that, how can you do it in a way that is healthy and sustainable? That has always been my strategy. And I'm not going to go full-time as a writer until I can do it in a healthy way and in a sustainable way that supports my mental health. So I just want you to think about that. My mission is to entertain and educate my audience while remaining nimble. That's my mission. It's my passion and my purpose. And I recognize that I'm here on this planet for a very short amount of time. As Al Jarreau used to say, we're all just passing through. And, I would like to believe that whatever time I spend on this planet is spent touching people in some way, because I have no control over how people take my content. There's things like when you listen to this episode, I hope that maybe it gets you to think about your own happiness and maybe some of the things in your life are out of proportion, and maybe there are things that you can address and fix and change your mindset. But I don't know that. And maybe my content has no impact on you. Or maybe it has a completely different impact that I have, no. I just learned to stop stop trying to control that. Just write the content that's on your heart, and put it out there, and let people tell you how it reacts with them. But anyway, that's passion and purpose about why you write, and I just think that that's so important to have a clear strategy. And then for writers out there, affection for those you love and giving affection to others is critically important. It's really easy to, I don't know, get stuck inside your own mind. Just don't forget the people in your life. And also for writers, I think it's important to have a strong family, but to remember that friends are also chosen family too, because, we have the unique problem of the fact that sometimes our families don't understand what we do. They can't conceive of why sitting in a chair for hours at a time and making stuff up is a viable path, because all they see are the starving artists. Now most family will come around eventually when you become successful, but it can be very difficult to declare to the world that you're a writer and have some of your family members support you. And so being strategic about who you surround yourself with, I think, is important. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. And then also, make sure you enjoy the writing. Dean Wesley Smith said this all the time, to have fun. And I think those are the two most profound words of writing advice that I certainly have ever received, is to have fun and keep writing fun. And do things that you enjoy and want to learn and grow in. Sure, there's going to be things in the writing life that you're not going to enjoy. There's a lot of writers that don't enjoy business, a lot of writers that don't enjoy marketing, and sure, you're going to have to learn those things. I mean, there's, things in every profession that we don't necessarily want to do, but we have to do it in order to be better, and that is what it is. But in terms of the things that you control and in terms of how you spend most of your day, and the big decisions, those should be things that you enjoy. So write in genres that you enjoy. Tell stories that you enjoy. Keep stretching and trying to learn, and just accept that you're never going to know everything. I think that's the healthiest mindset you can have as a writer. That coupled with failure after failure. And yes, I said I recommend that people go through failure, because failure is a better teacher than success. Success destroys so many careers. People come into money way too fast. They come into success way too fast. And, if you haven't done the work to be self-aware and understand who you are, success just takes everything about you that's wrong and makes it worse. It just magnifies everything. So I think failure is a really good teacher to have as a writer. Especially when you have a lot of them, like I did early on. And then also as a writer, other interests that aren't your primary passion. I know a lot of you guys like to play video games. I know a lot of you like anime. A lot of you like, things that have nothing to do with writing. And I think that's good. Don't let anybody tell you that that's a bad thing. And don't let anybody tell you that you're splitting your focus. Just have fun with those things and know that they'll be there for you when the writing isn't working, because you don't want to burn out, and how are you going to develop self-awareness and self-acceptance of who you are and why you're here? So here are my takeaways, and I'll just kind of end with these takeaways, and maybe they get you to think about this in a different way. I think that most people have most of the ingredients that I talked about. In fact, I think a lot of people have all of the ingredients. I think happiness is already within your grasp. You just have to mix the ingredients together in the way that works best for you. And I think if you're missing an ingredient, go and get it. But what do people do when they're missing ingredients in the kitchen? Say you're cooking a meal and you need some rosemary and you don't have rosemary. Well, they take a substitute, or they find ways to get around it. There may be some ingredients that I've talked about where you say, that sounds great, but I don't have that ingredient in my kitchen right now. And that's okay too. Nobody's saying you got to have all of these. So do what works best for you, and don't let anybody tell you what you should or shouldn't have. Just do the best with what you have, and the next takeaway is that happiness is a choice that you can make right here and right now, regardless of your circumstances. You know, I'm not, like I said, I think I said this last week, I'm not going to be one of those people that says, you have to do this or you have to do that. I just hope I'm giving you some things to think about, but you can choose to be happy right now, right here. And I also think you can get better at happiness over time and learn to enjoy your life more, just like Bertrand Russell did. And the next takeaway I would give you is, do what you want. Don't worry so much about making mistakes. It's nice to learn from the mistakes of other people. I think that that's valuable. Don't get me wrong. But as a writer, your mistakes are your own to make. As long as you avoid scams and shiny, deceptive marketing, I think you'll be fine. Yes, and yes, that means you might have some ugly covers, and you may not realize it. You may have some ugly babies. You're right. You may be more confident in your writing than your writing actually is, and that's okay too. As long as I said before, as long as you're stretching and growing and able to adopt a mindset that can help you see your weaknesses in a way that is not damaging to you is important, because I think writers are really easy to give away their confidence to other people. And I've said this on my YouTube channel, and people get angry at me when I say it, and I don't care that they get angry because it's my opinion. I think writers like to give away their confidence. I think they like to buy confidence, just like with developmental editing. I've talked about this over and over and over again. I feel like I'm the only person talking about this, and I'm not going to go into it now, but I just think that writers, own your art. Own your art. It's never going to be perfect, and there's always something else you can do to it. But just because you may not feel that it is where it needs to be, that doesn't mean that you need to surrender your book to the opinion of another person. Okay. Now, some people are going to mishear me. I'm not saying don't get your book edited. I'm not saying don't get a cover designer. I'm not saying don't get opinions from other people. I'm just saying that, just be confident in what you're doing, because when you give your work to someone with an expectation of fixing it, they're always going to find something wrong, So anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that. And then another thing is that goals are things that you attach yourself to, and goals in and of themselves can drive unhappiness. And this is something I didn't realize until last week. You guys know that I'm one that sets a lot of goals. In fact, this year I think I set like 30 goals for myself, and I've already accomplished like over half of them, and that's great. It feels good, but sometimes I think goals can also be part of our problem. Sometimes it's good not to have any goals. And again, who do you know who's gonna say that? Almost every influencer is going to say you have to have goals. You have to have goals. And I probably would have been the same way until a week ago. Now I think goals are almost irrelevant. It's really more important just to set goal posts in terms of how you're going to think about things. So I don't know, maybe I'll talk about this in the future, but I don't think I'm going to set any goals for 2022 other than what are some of the things that I want to think about. So this year I'll follow through with the goals that I set, and what I accomplish. What I don't, I'm not going to lose any sleep over. But at the end of the day, goals are just arbitrary. No one's going to come to your house and shoot you. You can have a great writing career and do all the things you need to do without setting goals and creating this stress and pressure on yourself. Because sometimes what happens is when we set goals, we feel like we're failures if we don't hit them, because we see all the other people around us hitting these goals, right? And we see all the other people around us having success. And when we don't hit it, we feel like there's something wrong with what we're doing, right? So I think that's why goals can cause unhappiness. I was watching a YouTube video by Sadhguru. He's an Indian guru. And he makes great videos. I like a lot of his advice. And one of the things he said is that the spirit is free. The spirit wants to be free. It is the most free thing you can imagine. And a free spirit can do anything it wants to do, right? If you think about it, it makes perfect sense, right? yet we attach ourselves to so many things that bring us unhappiness and take away our freedom. And when I heard that, I thought, goals kind of do that, don't they? And so beware of all the things that you attach yourself to in life, and might some of those things drive unhappiness. All right. And then the last thing is what I want to leave you with, which is that proportion is everything in life. Haters are people whose own life proportions are out of whack. I get haters on my YouTube channel on an almost weekly basis. Somebody, they'll comment and say, man, you ain't shit, or, you don't know anything, or you're completely wrong, or whatever, and here's why you're wrong. And some people, they give constructive feedback. Other people are just assholes, just put it that way. And that has nothing to do with me. That has everything to do with them, because their own life proportions are out of whack. It's just YouTube, people. Like if you watch one of my videos and you don't like it, just watch another video. If I watch a video I don't like, I don't go on a video and comment on why someone is wrong and attack them or anything like that. And so just remember your place in the universe. And at the end of the day, when you're 6 feet under, is YouTube really going to matter? Is a 1-star review really going to matter? I think the answer is no. And so having a sense of proportion and balance is really important. And when writing it's easy for writing to become, to have a bigger proportion than maybe it should in life. And I say that as somebody who does a lot. And I say that as somebody who writes a lot, and writing takes up a lot of my life. I think with a lot of people, it can take up maybe more proportion and bandwidth than maybe it should. And one of the things that Russell says in the book is that work is important and something that everyone should strive for, and success is important, but it's not worth it if you have to sacrifice all the other ingredients in your life. All right, so that's just what I've been thinking about. Those are the ingredients to happiness in the writing life. Things that I've certainly thought about, and like I said, I feel like I'm in a really good spot. And I talked in the last episode or 2 episodes back about how I was kind of walking through a valley. I really do feel like I was meant to stumble upon this book, and I feel like it's going to help guide me in the next transition of my life, whatever that is. I feel like one's coming. I have no idea, but it feels like this was something that I needed to experience and ruminate on and think about, so that I can be ready for that. So I'm just passing it along. Hope you find it interesting. So so don't forget, I'm having a power hour this Saturday. It's going to be April 3rd, and it's going to be, I'll put a link to it in the show notes because I don't remember the time. I should remember the time, but I don't. So I would love to have you join me there, and I'm going to be doing some more stuff on YouTube, going to be experimenting with some different types of videos here very soon. So I hope that you have a great weekend. I hope that you're taking the time to be safe. For those of you who can get your COVID vaccines, I hope that you can get those, and maybe we'll all be back to a feeling of normalcy. So with that, have a wonderful week, and I'll talk to you next time. Peace. Thanks for joining me this week. If you enjoyed this episode, you'll enjoy my backlist episodes at michaelaran.com/podcast. For your free starter library of my favorite novels, join my fan club by visiting michaelaran.com/fanclub. If you're a writer and want to connect with me further, check out my YouTube channel, Author Level Up, for helpful writing advice at authorlevelup.com. Thanks for listening, and I'll be back next week.